So we're going to start plating now, and we're going to start with the centerpiece, which is the panna cotta. And I generally don't like to use too much heat to unmold them, but I also don't like using a knife because I like the sides to look wonderful and sharp and clean. So just a couple of seconds in warm water, not hot water, warm water. Just enough to get this baby to pull away from the sides. Still look lovely. So we'll flip this over, and if you ever have any trouble getting a panna cotta out and you're in a plastic container, just release a little bit of that pressure, poke a little hole.
There it goes.
Let gravity take care of the rest.
White on white.
We're getting there. So next, we'll take just a little bit of blue cheese. The panna cotta itself is not going to be intensely strong with the flavor of blue cheese. It's very much there, but this dessert is really kind of gray area between sweet and savory. So we don't really want anything to be too savory, but we don't want anything to be too sweet either. We want to make sure that everything has continuity to it. So rather than make the blue cheese panna cotta really intensely strong, we would rather allow for subtlety so you get a little bit of the flavor of the honey, and then accentuate that with a little bit of blue cheese. So just to
Is it the same? Is it the Rogue blue cheese?
Yes.
Okay.
So the same blue cheese.
And that's Oregon, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And why did you choose that particular?
I liked this blue cheese because it was not overly pungent, and it was more flavorful than pungent. I think it was a blue cheese that allowed for a little bit of sweetness, and that allowed for other things on a plate. Some blue cheeses, in my opinion, are really meant to just be eaten with a cracker and a good glass of wine, and I think this one sort of allowed for some room in between. The next thing, which is an obvious pairing, is a cracker. So what we have is a house-made saltine, which is not exactly a saltine, but it is reminiscent of a saltine, made with the same ingredients, made in the same way, but we chose to make the saltine a little bit more delicate than what you might find, purely because when you're eating this dessert, it has to be eaten with a spoon, and the idea of getting through a saltine with a spoon didn't seem very restaurant-friendly. So very simply, cleaned out our good friend. Next up, we have sweet sticky bacon. So the bacon that we're using is a Bavarian Meats bacon, and we start
Which
baking
comes
it
in
out.
slab, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. And that was the winning bacon at Baconopolis, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So what we've done to this bacon is we've tried to cater it to desserts, as odd as that sounds. So the first thing that we do when we cut the pieces of bacon off of the slab is that we put it in cold water and we bring it up to a boil, and we essentially blanch the bacon first. And what we're doing is we're taking some of that the really hard salt and the really hard smoke off of the bacon. We're not boiling it forever and getting rid of all of that, but we are tempering that a bit so that it kind of leaves some room for other sweeter flavors. And then once it's been blanched, we then submerge it in Mexican Coca-Cola and maple syrup, about a 2-to-1 ratio, so twice as much Coca-Cola as what you would have maple syrup. And we basically throw that into a pot and we cook that all the way down until it's completely glazed. The fat is nice and shiny and almost translucent. And once that happens, we then drain it from the excess liquid, and we put that back into an oven at 350 degrees for about 6 minutes. And it just sort of pulls everything together, gets rid of any loose syrup that's around the outside, almost crisps up the meat a little bit, and pretty much renders it delicious. So a couple of these pieces will go on top of the panna cotta itself, and a couple of pieces will be strewn about the plate.
You know, when I was thinking about this, it kind of reminded me of those recipes with the ribs, the Coca-Cola ribs.
Coca-Cola ribs, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of loosely based on that idea.
Really?
you know, you end up with something that is thin enough to cook it in, but has enough sugar that as it concentrates becomes a syrup and almost candies the meat, essentially, which is why people love Coca-Cola ribs. So next up we have the apples, and these are Pink Lady apples that we cook sous vide. And it's just one of these pieces per. And we have taken the liberty of reducing the liquid and the fat down to create a little bit of a glaze around the outside of them. And we'll just give it one piece and a little bit of that wonderful juice that comes out of the bag. Next, we'll go onto the plate with the whey caramel, which a little bit about the whey caramel. We had a hard time figuring out how to finish this dish and what would really give it the continuity that we really wanted, and we felt like it was missing something. When we were putting this together, we felt like it needed acid, but it also maybe needed something a little bit sweet. And so we started thinking about cheese and the components of it and how it's put together to really try to make this sort of a holistic approach to working with cheese. And so finally it dawned on us that we should just simply make a whey caramel. For those of you that aren't familiar with the cheese making process, whey is essentially the liquid that's left behind after the milk is acidulated when we separate the curds and the whey. So basically all we're really doing is creating almost a cajeta style caramel using the whey, combining whey and sugar and cooking that until it caramelizes. We add a touch more whey at the end to bring it back to the texture that we want. And it's really funny because while this caramel is cooking, it actually smells like mozzarella cheese, which is pretty awesome. And then once the caramel is done, we finish that with a touch of honey, a touch of sherry vinegar, and a touch of black pepper, just to give kind of a little bit of bite to the dish and a little something that will cut through the richness of all the components on the plate. And so just a little bit here and there. This is pretty intense stuff, so we're going to want to use it sparingly so that we allow for the rest of the flavors to really come through on this plate. And last but not least, we felt that the dish needed a little bit of fresh apple just for the brightness and just to keep things nice. And I'm going to get a better apple. Yeah. This is my brother, Felipe. I know that we don't look alike. We have the same dad, different moms. And someday, someday my mustache will be as cool as his.
Oh, you guys have fun here. You guys have fun here. Excuse me.
Unadorned, completely true. A little bit of fresh apple, nice little julienne, and voila.
Beautiful.
There you have it.
Oh my gosh.
Rogue creamery,
so
blue cheese panna cotta with sweet
pretty.
sticky bacon, house-made saltine, whey caramel, and a bacon confit apple.
Beautiful.